this video, I'll show you how to add objects to the scene as well as edit those objects. Now, we already know how to add objects because I've done it in previous videos, but formally, to add an object to the scene, go to Add, Mesh, and just select the object that you want, left click on it to add it to the scene. We already know that wherever the 3D cursor is, that's where the object will be added. So our cylinder here is added into the cube here, so I'm just going to use my move tool to move it out like so. Now there are other objects that we can add to the scene. There are many other objects that we can add, such as text, metaball, etc. Right? We won't be going into all of these right now. So let me just press the X key and click on delete to delete the object. And that's another way that you can delete. So it's either the delete key or the X key and then click on delete. Now to edit your object, we need to go into edit mode. Select your cube. And if you come all the way up here to the top, you'll see that we're in object mode. Now, if you left click on that and select edit mode, we're now able to edit our object. Now, alternatively, let me go back here, go to object mode. Alternatively, there is a shortcut key, and the shortcut key to switch between object mode and edit mode is the tab key on your keyboard. So press tab to switch between the object mode and the edit mode. And I believe that's much shorter than going all the way up here. So remember that shortcut. All right, so now that we're in edit mode, let us go over a few things. To select your object, you press A. To deselect the object, you press A twice. So that's AA to deselect, A to select. Or you can select on a point, because as you can see here, we're seeing the points that make up the object. So you could just shift select all the points that make up the object to select the entire object. A single point on our object is called a vertex. 2 points together is called an edge, right? So we have an edge here, an edge here, an edge here, and an edge here. 3 points is called a tri or a triangle. We don't have a triangle here, but 3 points that are connected to each other is called a triangle. 4 points is called a face. We want to stay away from triangles, and we also want to stay away from something called n-gons. Now, n-gons are objects that have 5 points, 5 or more points connected to each other. Let me actually just demonstrate that here. First, I'll demonstrate the triangle. The triangle would look like, well, of course you know what a triangle looks like, but just for a visual reference, this is a triangle or a tri. And an n-gon would look something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and let me put another point here. Enter. 5. Actually, let me put another point here. So this is an n-gon. Notice it has multiple points connected to each other. All right, we don't want that. We want to stay away from those. If we look up here, we can see that we have 3 different options here. Now, these are 3 different ways to select our object. The first one is called the vertex select mode. So with that selected, you can select an individual vertex on your object. And you can do all the cool stuff that you were doing in object mode by, such as pressing G to grab and moving your mouse. You can S to scale. Of course, it's a single point, so you won't see the scale unless I select 2 points, press S, you can scale. And of course, you can press R to rotate. So everything that you were able to do in object mode, you're able to do here. It's just that it's now altering the geometry of the object. The second one is called the edge mode. So if I left click on that, we're able to select an edge like so, right? I can grab that like this. And the third one is called the face select mode. So if I click on that and left click, I'm able to select a face. Now these are just quick and easy ways for you to select these because you can technically still, if you're on vertex mode, you could hold on shift to select 4 points to select a face, and you could select 2 points to select an edge. Now the shortcut keys for these are the 1, 2, and 3 numbers on the numpad on the top of your keyboard, not on the numpad on the right side of your keyboard. So if I press 1 at the top here, I'm in vertex select mode. If I press 2, it switches to edge select mode, and if I press 3, it switches to the face select mode. So you can keep that in mind. So how do we modify our object here? Now the first thing that you learn is something called extruding, and that is pulling out more geometry out of your object here. So to do that, let me go to vertex select mode here and select a single vertex. And let's say I wanted to extrude this point by pulling out more geometry. Well, there's a tool over here. Notice in edit mode, we get even more tools here. So there's a tool here called extrude region. So if you should left click on that, you'll be presented with this plus sign here. And if you left click and drag, then release, it actually pulls out more points out of that one point. And if you left click and drag it again, it would add more points. Now, alternatively, the shortcut for that is the E key. So if I wanted to extrude without going through the trouble of going all the way over to my tools panel here, I'll just left click on my vertex and just press the E key on my keyboard, and it will pull out a point. And then if I left click, it would accept that, and then I can press E again, left click E, and this allows me to move much faster. Let me Control Z to undo that. And you can extrude 2 points, which is an edge. So if I select those 2 points and press E, I'm able to pull out those points. But notice that because we're in 3D space, this is very lean, right? So you'll have to keep that in mind. This is a good time to introduce you to the mathematics of our transform tools. That's what I like to call it. So let's say let me actually select this one here, the move tool. Let's say I wanted to pull out, I press E to extrude out a point, and I wanted it to go straight in line with my x-axis here. Well, once you pull it out, you could just press the X key on your keyboard to lock it into that particular axis. All right, so now that we know that it's going straight on the x-axis, if I left click, you can see that it's straight. If I wanted it to go to the Y, I'll just E and then press Y, and then it will lock it into the Y position. And it's the same for, of course, the Z. It would lock it into that position. All right, so let me undo all of that. So that's how you would extrude. Now there's another option here to add more geometry to your object that is called edge loop. And to access the edge loop, we have a tool over here as well, right? But I'm going to show you the shortcut key. To access the edge loop, just press the Control key and the R key on your keyboard. And when you hover over your object, you'll see this yellow outline. So if I position it here, we'll see a vertical loop. If I position it here, we'll see a horizontal loop. Now to add this loop to the object, just simply left click to add it to the object. If I didn't want it, I would just right click, all right? But now that it's added to the object, I'm able to drag it wherever I want it to go. So let's say I wanted to position it here. I will just left click and it will go there. If I didn't want it to go there, but I wanted it to go to the center, I'll just left click and just right click to release it, and it would be added there. So now, as you can see, we have more points on our object here that we can play around with. And there are many, many more tools here, such as let us go through some of these tools. So here we have a knife tool, and if I should left click on that, it allows me to cut my object. So just select a point, left click to select a point, and then I can actually left click where I want to cut. Just left click to accept. When you're done, just press the Enter key on your keyboard, and you will be presented with the cut, all right, or the area that you wanted to cut out. And of course, we have more points that we can select and move about, like so. Now, to delete any part of your object, you can just select that particular area and just press the delete key. And let me demonstrate that. Let's say I wanted to delete this face here. So I can either hold down the Shift key to select the face, or of course, we can go up here, select the face option and select the face and press the X key. Now, when you press the X key, you will see a bunch of different options here. We know that we want to delete a face, so we'd select faces, and that would delete the face. If you wanted to delete a vertex, you'd select the vertex option. But any point that is connected to the vertex will also be deleted. So if I should select this vertex, press X and delete vertex, it will delete everything that is connected to that point. So be aware of that. Let me Control Z to undo that. And by the way, you probably won't be using half of these tools The main tools you'll probably be using is the extruding and the loop cut tool, as I said before, and maybe the bevel. Let me actually introduce the bevel tool to you. So let me press A to select my object, X, and I'm just going to press vertex to delete all of those. And I'm going to add back a cube here and go to bevel. And to bevel the object, you just select this point and drag it out, and you'll get a bevel. So you can drag it out as far as you want or drag it back in. Now you can smooth or get a smoother bevel with your left mouse button held down still. Just move your middle mouse wheel up. I can move it back, scroll your mouse wheel back to decrease the amount of geometry, the amount of points, all right, or the amount of loops. So if I wanted to accept this, I would just release my left mouse button and I'm presented with the geometry here. So let's recap. We know how to extrude an area by just selecting the area that we want. We can either select the tool or press the E key to extrude, pull it out. We can also pull it inward like so, all right? To extrude, we can add loop cuts by pressing Ctrl and R, moving over our objects, whether horizontally or vertically, and left click to accept, right click, and then we have more geometry there. Okay, so this is the basics for adding and editing your object, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.